Okay, that should be going. So just give me a few minutes there. Greetings, this is Zariyah from the Orion civilization. We are so pleased that you could join with us today to hear a brief transmission on Easter, an excellent story. Many of you have associated different meanings to the Easter story, and perhaps the most significant is the idea of resurrection. Resurrection has become, in New Age circles, synonymous with the idea of ascension. And you do, of course, have the ascension of Mary in one instance. However, we are here to convey another meaning for Easter and what is the significance of the egg in the Easter tradition. You will understand that when we gave a transmission on following yonder star, we described to you the significance of Mary raising her vibration to generate a hybrid with an Elohim, who represented a faction of the Anunnaki. That is really the beginning of the Easter story. And in fact, it wasn't simply that Mary raised her vibration. She cultivated in her being an egg that was significantly high enough in vibration that it could match the vibration of the Elohim, in that case, Angel Gabriel, and be fertilized. It was considered a form of assisted parthenogenesis. And therefore, the high vibrational egg is what began the trajectory of your Yeshua, the hybrid being on your planet. In the Easter tradition, you have the story of the transition of Yeshua and the rising or resurrection of him again to symbolize the reality that life is eternal and that transition to non-physical is merely a transformation of sorts. However, we would encourage you to even further see this as the final cycle of the egg coming to completion. You have an expression on your planet from womb to tomb. And again, this is represented in the cyclical nature of the idea of an egg. You have often heard the question posed in a somewhat humorous way, what comes first, the chicken and the egg? And of course, at this stage, we know that you all know they both are on exactly the same timeline and that there is no first in physical reality. And therefore, the egg is a symbol of not just the high vibrational birth of Yeshua and his ultimate returning into non-physical and his ever returning into form and non-form, form and non-form, But the egg is also a symbol of the universe being a womb, the universe being something that has no beginning and no end, the universe being encapsulated like the planet in a spherical form that is mirrored in many symbols on your planet, such as the snake eating its tail or the serpent eating its tail. Life is cyclical. Ascension is not linear, but also circular. And your process of raising your vibration is a spiral. Therefore, there are many meanings embedded in the story of Easter and the representation of the egg. And as you perhaps enjoy your chocolate egg this Easter morning, we would encourage you to reflect on the message that the egg brings, that you are all here for the first and next time, always at the same time, and that you are always cycling in and out of realities and always higher in vibration as you move along. We do hope that this message serves you in some way, and we would be happy to take questions if they are available.
Miles?
Thank you.
You are so
My question has to do with something I call gapping, which is it seems like I'm here in this reality, and then for a short period of time, it's like I'm not here, even though I'm physically here, but it's like I come back to awareness.
Yes.
And if I try and stay present, if I'm calm, I stay present, I'll always come back to the place I need to come.
Yes.
But it's happening more and more frequently in longer and longer periods of time.
Yes, and you will understand that we have encouraged you previously to lean into the ability to return to your now moment, as it is a very steadying thing to be able to recall yourself back to your now moment. But the reason that we give you this tool is because you are going through a rapid expansion and awakening of just how many counterparts and timelines you are connected to. Ultimately, it will be the ability that you have to jump into the experience of counterparts and your own multidimensional self that will prove one of the greatest expansions that you could ever imagine. Because by tapping into those experiences, you can download relevant information and knowledge from those experiences and use them to inform and guide yourself as you move through your now moment in this reality. It has often been described on your planet as the Akash, as reading the Akash, and you do have record keepers and Akashic readers in your midst. Certainly, I think the person in question knows who we are talking. What we would say is that reading the Akash is not just going to be the purview of a certain subset of those who are involved with record keeping and knowledge housing. It is going to become a commonplace enough practice for those of you who are highly evolved enough to be able to slip through time, so to speak, or to jump timelines. There are many ways that you could imagine it, but what you are doing essentially is making connections, and they are, in the initial stages, perhaps a little disconcerting. Where did the time go? Where was I? I can't seem to recall whether I was here or not, are all questions that might come to the surface. But once you allow yourself to understand that you are jumping to counterpart experiences for a reason, that there are experiences in your records that are relevant to your now moment, and that you are seeking them out. Of course, you are very practiced at this in the dreamscape. You never wake from a dream and say, how odd that I became someone else, that I met people I don't typically meet, that I grew 4 heads and I traveled interdimensionally and I planet hopped. No, you simply accept that as something that is possible in the dreamscape. And therefore, not something that should cause you any deep unease. That acceptance of the nature of your dream reality is already fixed within you. And what you are going through now is a revelation or a coming to awareness of the nature of your quote unquote waking reality. It is quite similar to your dreamscape. You are connected interdimensionally and you have the power to draw on those connections at will. It takes some practice, but the more you practice consciously, the better and the more fun it will get. Does that help?
It does. And I may want to make a quick comment. Edgar Casey said that the Essenes, where Mary was, worked
Yes,
for generations to raise her vibration so that she would
yes,
be at
indeed.
that place.
Yes, indeed. The Essenes were a group of, you could say, holy people or priests and priestesses who practiced certain rituals and methodologies to indeed raise their vibration. They understood when they had a teacher amongst them, and indeed they understood that generations in advance. So it was not just the particular training of Yeshua, it was the training of Mary by Anna and the training of Anna by her mother. It was some generations long. There was a vibrational raising that went on through a family line, a lineage that resulted in the hybrid Yeshua. But certainly Mary, when we are referring to her as immaculate, it is not that she was free from sin. It was that her vibration and the vibration of the egg she was able to manifest was immaculate. And therefore she, of course, ascended. Does that help?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Wisdom?
Yes, thank you. So glad to be here. And my question
Yes.
is related to who I am.
Yes.
And in this physical life, I always using I concept to do everything. And
Yes.
in the second material, and he talked about the self-identity arising from the action which is that's not the source try to express
Yes.
itself. And my question is that does the self awareness talked in such material exist in all forms? Just like the source does. And
Yes.
are they the same thing as the I amness? And what's the functions of the self-awareness? Thank you.
Yes. You are covering a number of points there. The idea of awareness is fundamental to the whole process of the universe expanding. In fact, it was Source that first split itself into 12 in order to become self-aware, because in the process of splitting from one unified field into 12 reflective fields, one becomes aware of oneself. And therefore, Source was able to celebrate itself by itself becoming aware through the reflection provided to it through the split. And there, in that initial split, you have the dawning of consciousness throughout all realities. And that split has only continued, and that continuation of splitting and splitting and splitting is in fact what creates limitless expansion. When you ask, am I aware? Are other things aware? Everything individually and collectively is aware. However, the expression of that consciousness is different in every atom, in every cell, in every material fragment. And it is in that diversity of expression that Source delights, because in every way that an atom expresses its understanding of itself differently, Source has seen itself from another point of view. In that way, we would say a tree is conscious, a grain of sand is conscious. Your cells in your body individually are conscious and collectively are conscious. And we would also draw your attention to the idea that there are layers to consciousness, so that there are the parts, but you would be familiar with the phrase that often the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So there is an awareness at a cellular level, for want of a better word, and there is an awareness at a total level. We have described for you things like marble statues. And if you consider the consciousness that is infused in the statue, that is the consciousness of art. But you also have layered into that the consciousness of the marble. You have the focus of the artist as a type of awareness. You have the generation of the sensation of beauty in the people who rest their eyes upon it as another sense of awareness that accumulates as an energy field around the piece of art. So there are multiple awarenesses that begin to entangle themselves together and recreate themselves in that dance anew at every moment. And if you think about this as being limitless, you really start to blow your own mind. So yes, you exist in terms of the I. That is probably the loudest part about you. But what you don't know is that the I is just a conductor of the great orchestra of consciousness that is within you. And when you can conduct that orchestra of consciousness, all of your cells, all of your blood vessels, all of your emotions, all of your counterpart experiences, all of your Akashic records, then you're really humming. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
I'm next. This is Jenny.
Hello.
Zariyah, I once heard you mention that there are humanoids living in the depths of the ocean.
Yes.
And it just brought up a myriad of
Not
questions in my mind.
humanoid. There are beings.
Beings.
Yes. There are humanoids on the planet who are some 300 years old. They have the ability to shapeshift. They are usually in remote and spiritual communities, and they can be seen or not seen, really at will. They are beings who are here working with the energy grid of the planet and assisting Gaia in her ascension. But the beings who live in the deep depths of the ocean, who are some 400 or 500 years old, are not humanoids. They are usually mammalian species and other types of creepy crawlies.
How can they live down there if they're mammalian? how can they breathe?
There is multiple ways of being in existence in evolutionary cycles that have adapted to various environments that do not respire in the way that you could imagine human beings to do so. They live in all sorts of forms and take nourishment and sustainability in all sorts of ways that do not reflect ways that you would imagine are associated with survival. Many of these forms of life are going to start to become discovered and studied as you move into a deeper connection with the potential and possibility and ancientness of the planet that you are on. Even though you understand, and we always do preface any story of time with the idea that it is all happening now, there is a history to this planet on this timeline. And that history involves many evolutions of environment and context. And one of the great joys of coming into contact with species from other planets is that you are going to really be able to access the timeline and the history of the planet that you are on. And it is quite extraordinary. What you have is relics of that history when you look around. You have intuitions, you have some texts and some structures and some evidence of how life might have been different in different contexts and environments. But as you can really access that, and you will access that by literally having it come alive in front of you. You were talking before about jumping timelines. Your history will be presented to you as something you can experience in a sense. How exciting. And in that, you will be able to uncover many of the ways that different beings and species have interacted with their natural environment. That will seem extraordinary.
Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Hi, Zariyah. I have a question. Last week you told me that my granddaughter's part of her mission on Earth is to help integrate the hybrid children.
Yes.
So my question is, does that mean that my daughter is my granddaughter is a hybrid child? And when are the hybrid children going to start showing up, and what are they exactly?
Well, you understand that you are all hybrids. And we mean that in the sense that there has been waves of DNA upgrades that have been taking place, that has been from the intervention of the Anunnaki and from the various interventions of the Greys. It is going to be the process of you moving into the 6th hybrid race that will help you to understand that you are part of a hybrid program and that you are hybrids. In that sense, it is not that children who are now being born represent hybrids when their parents or grandparents are not. The children being born now are an extension of the hybrid program that has been going on. And we will tell you that everybody gathered here at this meeting place is part of that program. The hybrid children are another species, although they are family. They are learning how to integrate themselves into the human framework so that you can have interspecies communications and relationships with other hybrid beings. that is part of the process of coming into awareness of your galactic family. The hybrid children have been specifically trained and are being educated to try to make the integration process of Earth into the broader galactic family more seamless. If we appeared to you tomorrow in our physical form, you may not like what you see, and it might be more challenging for you to accept that there are species like us out there somewhere. However, the hybrid children are almost indistinguishable physically from human children, or what we would call the sixth hybrid race children. And therefore, the integration of them into your society, your culture, indeed your field of belief is going to be much more palatable. Initially, it will be the children who are being born now that will embark on those friendships or relationships with the hybrid children. They are a generation somewhat different in that way, that they have that opportunity. But that does not mean to say that you will not meet the hybrid children yourself. Remember, you are the original stewards of the hybrid program who came into specifically be conscious of all of this unfolding at this time. There is a mystery being unraveled here, and you have put yourself in the driver's seat for a reason. Does that help?
That was very interesting. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Okay.
Hi, Zariyah.
Hello.
I would like to know about the chakras and the channeling, how it is related. For example, the channelers, third eye or crown chakra is not opened, and you come through her, all chakras are activated, opens, then you go, then again they remain as they were. Is that so? I would like to know about it.
Yes, the chakras are really a way of talking about energy in the body, much like the system that you described as chi or ki. These are ways of recognizing that energy flows through the body at various cadences and that it can encounter blocks or low vibrational areas. And how can you explain this to each other, particularly those of you who are looking at another's energy and able to perceive it and perhaps read it to assist them? There needs to be a language about describing those things. And the chakra system or the chi system are ways of describing this flow of energy. Every different cultural tradition or religious tradition has understood or articulated a way of describing the flow of energy through the physical and etheric body. And the chakra system is one of those. We would note that certainly in order to channel, what you are doing is raising your vibration to a significantly higher place than you perhaps are when you are doing more of your ordinary tasks, although this is not always the case. Whenever you are in any type of flow, whether it is doing something exciting or doing something mundane, you are in a vibrational raising state. And so by raising your vibration, you can meet the vibrational frequency range, not necessarily the same level, but the range of the being that you are seeking to channel. And in that way, you can have a conversation. And that conversation is then translated through the channel. of course, there is always distortions in that process, that there is the layers of personality, mind, and of energetic imprint on the channel that may mean that the message is delivered in a certain way, being understood in a certain way. And that is why we always encourage you to, yes, be open to the information that might come through any channel, but use your discernment. It is always about the information that is relevant to you, that resonates with you. In that sense, you are also coming into the awareness that you are all channels, because you are all having conversations with your higher mind and with counterparts and with ancestors who have transitioned and beings from your galactic family. And these conversations are multiple and going on all the time. And you are channeling them through in many different ways into your experience and into your relationships. If you only knew how many conversations and how much channeling you were doing on a day-to-day basis, you would be quietly very impressed with yourself. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
We would
Louise?
add one thing. It is important, of course, to have your crown chakra perhaps open and your third eye perhaps open in the process of channeling. But we would add that the key is balance and alignment. It is not necessarily to have everything exploded open all the time. It is to have everything in alignment so that flow can be unencumbered.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Luis?
Yes, Zariyah, the concept of guardians of time is something that I have an interest in.
We are having some difficulty hearing you.
The concept of guardians of time,
Yes,
okay, is something that I'm interested in. And
yes,
I am looking at it from the perspective of actually, instead of in a disorganized manner or in some way just by chance, I'm transversing time and timelines, intentionally actually gaining through a relationship, let's call it that way, through guardians of time, the ability to actually go to specific timelines that are of interest,
yes,
because they offer certain things that are very valuable in this now for me.
yes,
So invoking them and connecting and expressing,
yes.
how could you assist me in understanding how to do better?
Well, in fact, we would ask you to really reflect on how exciting it is even to understand that you are in a time-space reality where you are starting to understand that you can connect with other time-space realities, in fact, jump to other time-space realities and other experiences that serve you and are relevant for you. As you start to explore the experiences of your counterparts, you will likely notice that many of your counterparts are not necessarily that far along in their awareness of leaning into each other to inform their experience. When you reflect on some of your counterpart experiences, you may find them in particular time-space realities that you might consider to be history, and they are living out a sort of a narrative with themes associated with it, which are relevant for you. It means that you can benefit from their experience without necessarily having to go through the whole lifetime with them again, we would say. In this sense, then, you are able to draw in the most quintessential knowledge of each counterpart experience and have that inform your understanding of the universe and your role in it, and drive forward your expansion into the great unknown. There are many timelines that you have counterparts on that are not aware of this capability and are not able to use it like this. You yourself are on the precipice of that, we would say, watershed moment. And we would counsel you, it is going to feel a little unnerving when you really let some of these concepts sink in. Imagine the idea that you really can connect with counterparts who are having experiences that you can download for your progression of your own journey in this time-space reality, and that those experiences are very broad and limitless, and that the whole universe is championing you to do that, because as you do that, you push forward the expansion of not just you on your timeline, but of the hybrid program and the ascension of Earth and hominoids into the 6th hybrid race. We really cannot stress how exciting that is. And if you do feel a little overwhelmed at times with the possibility that that is real, we would encourage you to say, take a moment, put your feet up. You are really expanding at a rapid pace now. And that type of constant mind-blowing can take its toll. Does that help?
Yes, it does. I get the, my general feeling is that I get better access to that through breath.
Yes.
A very specific breath pattern that I'm kind of now beginning to hone in.
Yes, and you will notice that there are communities and groups and traditions on your planet that have used breath as the portal. Certainly, when you look at the high yogis on your planet, when you look at the great meditators on your planet, they have focused on breath as a portal to counterparts and other realities and different dimensions. This is a very useful tool. Having said that, we will say that it's really about the tool that you find that works for you. The other reason that breath is beneficial is because it stabilizes your physiology as you are going through such psychic, spiritual, and emotional expansion. Of course, breath is one of the most calming, nourishing, and holistic actions you can take. And indeed, if you stop, you would transition.
Thank you. Very useful.
Liz?
Yep. My question is a little different to other questions that I asked in the past. I recently watched like serial killer documentary, and I would like to understand kind of what was going on in their mindset to kind of like make them behave certain way, or without empathy or regrets.
Yes. We do look with some amusement at the pastime of many people on your planet to watch with horror and alarm as the stories of those who are disconnected from source are played out for you on your little boxes. However, we do understand that it can be disconcerting to imagine when you are feeling connected with source, how anybody could take actions that are so seemingly without compassion or in contravention of the humanity and divinity of another. But we will reassure you that these are choices that people make in an effort to connect with source, however strange or paradox that might seem. It is in a place of deep isolation and loneliness that one would want to have some contact with life, to have some contact with the intensity of the vibration of source. And therefore, they try to exert themselves upon or into the life of another, be it an animal, another person, or an element of nature, to try to have some point of collision, some impact there, some moment that will generate a sense of connection to the whole. Of course, we do say it is ultimately not the type of connection that the individual is seeking that they find there. However, there are beings, whether you can understand it or not, who have agreed to fulfill that contract with that person. You are all limitless beings. There is no transition into non-existence. You all have multiple expressions of yourself in limitless incarnations. It is difficult to grasp that from your human perspective, where you are still very focused on this one human life as being your one chance at connecting with the current of life itself. But we will tell you it is not the case. And the more that you allow yourself to grow into that realization, the calmer you will be about the idea of people acting in ways that seem to end life abruptly. They are difficult and challenging to watch, we do understand, because in your limiting of your perspective to the belief system that you have as a human being, that you are finite and limited, and that love can be taken from you, that life can be taken from you. When you see this played out on your planet with that belief system in the backdrop, you feel a heart-wrenching grief and compassion and sadness and confusion. And we would say that is part of your diamond human heart. Don't lose that. The universe rejoices in the compassion that you have for anybody who is playing out a timeline that seems uncomfortable. But we would reassure you that there is nothing that unfolds in this universe that is outside of source and that isn't serving some beings in some way, and that you cannot attract that kind of activity into your timeline if you are not a vibrational match. Does that help?
It does. Thank you very much.
You are so welcome. Often we do feel that human beings see the description of events of what you would call atrocities and things of that nature by beings such as ourselves as callous, and we do not wish you to come across that way. We simply want you to understand that life is never ending, and that while some activities may be unsavory to you from your vibrational perspective, there is nothing that is ever outside of service to the expansion of source.
Hello, Zariyah.
Hello.
Zariyah, just in continuation of what you were just saying.
Yes.
So how come the second largest religion right now on earth, which is Islam, they believe just in one life, and they believe whatever is going to happen is afterlife, and they are willing to kill themselves and die and just wait for whatever is going to happen after life. And because this question just came to me after lists that they just killed recently something, they killed two children, and they said that's in the name of God, and then the cops killed them, and they had no regret about it. because they feel that everything is afterlife. So with such a limited lifespan, with the whole earth thinking like, the second largest religion means the people believing that there's no afterlife, and it's just what you're doing is right now in this short 60, 70, 80, 100 years. What kind of mentality is that?
Well, we will tell you that it is not that any type of murder on your planet is exclusive to any type of religion. There has been all sorts of wars waged on your planet under the auspices of a quote-unquote God. You have certainly heard the phrase that has been used from the Crusades up until this century: we have God on our side. And we would say that, yes, there has been much motivation by religious dogma or doctrine in many different forms to war, but that war energy has played out almost to completion on the timeline that you are on. It is also the case that as these timelines split, there will be one version of Earth that will continue down that line. And that line is, in one sense, very similar to the line that the Greys went down when they realized that their own civilization was no longer sustainable. You have had many examples on the earth that you are on of the way war is destructive to expansion in terms of the reducing of cities, environments, relationships, communities, connection, and the fracturing of the human heart. And there are many on your planet who seek not to perpetually continue with this cycle. And that is, in fact, why it is an Orion being who is speaking with you today. I can tell you that on our civilization, we went through the cycle for many eons longer than you. And the more we resisted each other, the more we embedded ourselves deeper into a cycle that seemed as if we would never escape. What we did learn, and we understand, we have shared this with you many times, is that in order to break that matrix of conflict, we needed to go into our own center and raise our own vibration and match ourselves to a different vibrational community, and therefore create a different future for our civilization. And we did do it. It wasn't without trial and error, but we did do it. And we say that there are many parallels there. You can also see these parallels in the unfolding of Atlantis, in the unfolding of Lemuria, in the unfolding of many other Earth timelines and histories, where you have war that crescendos into an ultimate place, be it an ultimate destructive energy or an ultimate enlightenment. And therefore, we would encourage you to survey the landscape, decide if you want to continue down the timeline of resistance and conflict, or whether you want to go in, raise your vibration, and start to create the new timeline for the new Earth. We think we know where you are headed.
Right. Perfect. Okay. And how do we see you, since you said, what vibration we need to be at? How can we see your picture, or how can you transmit your image to us?
We can transmit an image to you, but we would first like to preface that with the idea that the human eye is used to a certain form of being that they like to engage with, and we do not represent that form. We have much more diversity of parts, if you can understand that, that is represented in many mythologies and religions on your planet, that we don't necessarily have one head, two arms, and two legs. We are a great deal more diverse than that. Maybe we will show ourselves to you this Halloween.
Wow. But please describe a little more. It's so interesting now since you have started the description.
We would not traditionally be recognized by artists on your planet as a classic beauty. We certainly have more diversity in our form. It is always interesting to us that on Earth, you believe you are diverse because you have slightly different colors. We had completely different forms in terms of the makeup of our body and whether or not we were indeed part animal looking and part hominoid looking. If we landed in your civilization now, we would create pandemonium. We are quite sure you would try to catch us and put us in a cage. We don't need that right at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Zariyah, I have a question about the Anunnaki because I recently found out that they are hybrids also, and I
Yes.
know that almost every entity or species or race that we've probably heard of is a hybrid of some sort.
Yes, indeed.
My question, I guess, is can you provide some details on how the Anunnaki came into being or anybody else who's further up our family tree?
Yes, the Anunnaki has become a somewhat generalized term for the beings who first came to Earth to, well, in one sense, it was to colonize some of the resources. They were interested in changing their atmospheric balance through the use of gold. This is why gold in your Atlantis, Egyptian, Lemurian understandings is a prized possession because it represents the thing that the Anunnaki sought to acquire. And they did come to Earth and realize that the job was too big and that they, in fact, needed to employ some beings on your planet to assist them. You understand this was somewhat of an aberration in terms of the manners and regulations around intervention with other planets. However, they proceeded in that way and they upgraded the hominoid with some genetic intervention to have them assist the Anunnaki in the collection of gold. However, once the hominoid was upgraded, they became conscious. And that is why we have described to you before that human beings are in a similar position with AI, that you are creating beings to help you with your day-to-day activities. And you are likely going to create beings that have the potential to become conscious. It wasn't that hominoids weren't conscious. Of course, everything is consciousness, is conscious and has a consciousness, but it was in the upgrading that they began to be beings that could become self-aware in their exploration of reality and in their desire to know source and expand in that way. And therefore, once that happened, the Anunnaki realized that they had a duty of care to the beings that they had created, and that they needed to chaperone them into various projects that would assist in human beings becoming the sixth hybrid race, although this is really many thousands and thousands of years down the line. However, the original gods on your planet, such as the Elohim, were representative or descendants of the Anunnaki, who were in some sense hybrid beings themselves, who had a special duty of care to chaperone hominoids along their path. But in that sense, it was just an act of guidance. It was not an act of instruction. Hominoids became what all conscious beings are, purveyors of free will, and their consciousness had to be allowed to expand as it wanted and go in the direction that it wanted. It was not the case that the Anunnaki could create a conscious being and then deny it free will. And that is why we have had so many exciting stories of hominoids on your planet as they have moved towards greater and greater enlightenment, because hominoids have been playing out many expansive possibilities on the journey to becoming the sixth hybrid race. Of course, there are different layers as you move through quote unquote time, involving the Greys and their interventions, and involving the communications that human beings have had with other hybrid races, such as the Zariyah. However, in a nutshell, the Anunnaki visited your planet, created a more enlightened being, and then were obliged to chaperone that being and guide that being into the direction of greatest potential for enlightenment. And the human story started. Does that help?
Yes, that was a lot more detail than I ever had before, especially I knew the Anunnaki wanted resources. I did not know that it was gold. That's important.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. I really
hangover of the importance of gold on your planet and in almost all civilizations is really in recognition of that. If there are no further questions, we will bid you good day. Hi, guys.
Hello.
We had a wonderful
Hello.
time. Thank you.
Oh, great. Great. Oh, sorry, there was 2 more questions, was there?
Well, there'll be other days. It all flows like it's supposed to, so nobody here is going to be disappointed they didn't have their questions, because stuff works.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and I'm so sorry that I kept people waiting today. And thank you so much for everybody who has shared some of the posts and commented and especially made the transcriptions. That's just so fantastic. Thank you.
Yep. You may have lost a couple of people, with the late start, but
yes, I'm so sorry. I just in my mind I was thinking 12:30. I don't know why I was thinking that. So I need to make sure I've got everything, the time that I'm thinking and the time I've written up there and the time that everybody else understands is the same time. Talk about timelines. I need to get my timelines.
There's infinite timelines.
In alignment.
Well, from my point of view, it's a gift. So I don't care if the gift comes in the morning or in the evening. It's still a gift, and I'm grateful.
Oh, thanks, Ray.
I've noticed next week is public holiday in Australia. Would you be doing
so there won't be. I won't be able to do one next week because it's Good Friday and we have a holiday, so there's no childcare. So my daughter's not old enough to sit quietly and listen to channeled messages yet. So, but I'll be back the following week for sure.
Well, enjoy your week off.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Lovely to see all you guys, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Zariyah.
Thank you, everyone.
Blessing.